As a cautious Kamala loses momentum, Democrats are panicking over a Trump win. Drop the news, this is Buzztown Times. The Kamala Harris campaign rocket, which soared to dazzling heights when she got into the race, is losing altitude. Despite raising $1 billion, despite overwhelmingly positive coverage by the mainstream media, she has failed to deliver a compelling message and is especially struggling to win over Black and Latino voters. There's no question that many Democrats who grew accustomed to reading stories about who will be in the Harris cabinet are panicking. Now, you could look at the glass as half full and say it's remarkable that a relatively unpopular vice president in a short period of time is running neck and neck with Donald Trump. She is tied nationally in a new NBC College poll, but that's a drop of 5 points for Harris since the last survey in September. Trump is the ultimate Teflon candidate. The press may jump on him for refusing to release his medical records as Harris just did, but demanding she take a cognitive test, for using incendiary language against illegal immigrants, or for vowing to protect women when it's his Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe. It doesn't matter. MAGA loyalists can't stand the media, and they're not going to change their minds at this late date. He has the advantage of having held the job. They remember Trump's presidency with growing fondness, particularly for a strong economy and greater limits at the border, and brush aside any negative developments, especially January 6th. Harris has certainly made policy proposals and done a bunch of softball interviews, but she made a big mistake on The View saying she couldn't think of a single thing where she differed from Joe Biden. It was not intended as a gotcha question. How can she grab the mantle of the change candidate and, with that sentence, cast herself as Biden 2.0? If she feels loyalty to Joe, it's misguided. As a veteran poll, he would understand if she said he did a good job. But here's several areas where I disagree with him and would do things differently. No word salad allowed. Axios and others are reporting tension between the Harris and Biden camps. She's replaced the president's top strategist and spokesman, precisely the kind of leaks that mark a sputtering campaign. When people complain that they don't really know Kamala, they're really saying they're not yet prepared to trust her with the nuclear codes. She still has to pass the commander-in-chief test, but she also has to seem warm and approachable. That's a daunting challenge in a country that, unlike much of the world, has never elected a female president. Here's some British invective from Andrew Sullivan on his Substack. The more I listened to her in these interviews, the more worried I became that she doesn't actually believe in anything. Her team either fears or knows she may not be up to it. And this is bleeding obvious. A presidential campaign where you rarely face the press, never deal with a hostile interview, and never hold the presser is a campaign defined by fear. You can smell it from miles away. Andrew, by the way, is voting for Harris, mainly because he'll do anything to keep Trump out of the White House. Kamala keeps talking about being the underdog, but she's run a very cautious campaign. The anxiety about making a mistake should be outweighed by the need to make news at a time when Trump is back to dominating the news. Many days go by in which she's a minor TV presence compared to the ratings boosting Trump. It's smart that she's now agreed to several network town halls, but she should have been doing these from the start rather than reciting the same stump speech at rallies. Drinking beer with Stephen Colbert doesn't quite cut it, and who would have thought that the woman of color would be lagging behind the usual Democratic margins among blacks, particularly black men and Latinos? Things reached the point where Barack Obama had to scold black men for sexism, accusing them of not being comfortable with voting for a woman. The battleground polls are tight, so obviously Harris can still win, but she basically needs to camp out in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin rather than trying to pick off these Sunbelt states. In fact, if she had put aside any personal friction and picked Josh Shapiro, she'd probably have more of an edge in his state. Instead, she went with Tim Walz, who's not helping the ticket much no matter how many pheasants he hunts. He has, however, done well in 2 straight interviews with Fox News Sunday. A major step forward, Harris agreeing yesterday to an interview with Fox anchor Bret Baier on Wednesday in Pennsylvania. Some headlines are calling this a risky move, but Bret has vast experience with such interviews and will absolutely be fair. The upside for her, reaching the largest audience by far in cable news. Bret said on the air that he believes there's a sense that they have inside the campaign. Their strategy has to change. They've got to change. They're losing black males. I think that the campaign realizes they have to do more outreach. Maybe this is all too much to lay on Kamala's shoulders. Maybe she's doing the best she can against a former president whose message is clear and simple: stop illegal immigration, mass deportations, combat inflation, end wars in the Middle East. And an incumbent is always subject to the countercharge. Well, why haven't you done it already? The vice president simply hasn't been able to generate the excitement that surrounded her initial campaign launch. 3 weeks is a long time in politics, but whether Harris can re-energize her candidacy remains an open question. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to follow Buzztown Times because we keep you updated